The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and guests and not necessarily those of this station, management, staff, or sponsors. WPSL does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WPSL.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation. And the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, call right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
It's 11:07 at WPSL 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast. And now it's time for the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast with Ms. Sandra Liliana and Senior David.
Hey guys, welcome to the Sun Palm Financial Broadcast, where we talk all things money. I'm your host, D. Thomas Cummings. My friends and my clients call me Dave. I'm here with my co-host, Sandra Liliana, and we're broadcasting live from the Treasure Coast of Florida, and we're heard worldwide on Alexa, Google Home, and the TuneIn app. So welcome to the show. The first thing that we're going to be talking about today, the topic is going to be residential real estate investing. So this is something that's kind of come into the news lately with some of the big changes and the NAR, National Association of Realtors lawsuit that just got settled. So there's some new things that have affected this. So we're going to be talking about residential real estate investing in general. And those of you who may be a landlord or have been a tenant and you've had a nightmare scenario, we'd like to hear from you. 772-340-1590. That's 772-340-1590.
Good morning. Now, before getting started, I wanted to advise that we may be making some financial suggestions in the broadcast. So a quick disclaimer. The information and opinions contained in this broadcast have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable. They are given for informational purposes only. The information is not intended to be used as a sole basis for financial decisions or as solicitation to sell.
All right, so now on to the topic, real estate as an investment. Now, we have spoken a bit about the commercial real estate sector and kind of the challenges that are going on there. But today we're strictly focusing on the residential side of investing in real estate. So what really are some of the benefits when we're talking about investing in real estate? So I'd like to kind of go over some of those. Now, full disclosure in advance, Sandra and I have been professional real estate investors, so we have bought properties, we've sold properties, we've done just about everything there is. So we've done the fix and flip, we've done the short-term, long-term rentals, and so forth. So we kind of have a pretty good handle on this, but we don't claim to know everything, which is why I'd like to hear from other investors out there. If you'd like to call in, 772-340-1590, if you'd like to chime in.
So you're not like the HGTV flip show or whatever that thing was.
Well, we've done our best to try to imitate what's her name, Joanna Chip and all of those guys.
And whatever. Yeah.
Or Christina, whatever. All these Property Brothers and whatnot. It's funny that you mentioned that. When we're dealing with real estate investing, I can assure you, as a professional, it never looks like it does on TV.
You think?
That's the very first thing that you should know. It is not at all like what it looks like on TV. We're going to get into some stories today, and when you hear it, you're gonna hear some of our worst case scenarios, you're going to probably not want to ever invest in real estate by the time we're done.
Well, you're
but-
not talking Bel Air mansions, I think.
No, we're not talking the Bel Air mansions. But by the time we're done, you're going to have a sincere, realistic expectation of what happens in this sphere of investing. Okay, so that's what we're here to give you today. All right. Okay, so let's get into some of the benefits of investing in real estate. So, of course, the first one is you get to see, feel, and touch your investment. Now, some people might say, okay, well, who cares? That's important because I don't know if you've ever seen the little episode on South Park. It's my favorite. Being a financial advisor, it's my favorite, is where he walks into the bank. I think Cartman walks into the bank and he gives the guy money. And the guy says, okay, let's put this in your account. Da, da, da. It's gone. And then he's like, wait a minute, what do you mean it's gone? He's like, it's gone. You lost all your money. And then he goes to the next person. Each person that brings the guy money, he types it in and it's gone. So no joke on that. We had a client lost $12,000 a year for like several years and finally decided to come over and talk to us.
Wait a minute, on purpose?
Well, no, she didn't lose it on purpose. She handed it to a quote unquote professional and was losing crazy money every year. And this person is a retiree. So we couldn't believe that one. But anyway, this is the kind of stuff that goes on. So anyway, won't talk about that. Let's focus back on the topic. So to be able to see, feel, and touch your investment, you know where your money is. You've got it parked in a physical asset. Unlike stock market and other types of investment, you can go there and you can check on it. So if there's no other benefit, that's one good one. There's another one though. Another benefit is there are some tax savings that are involved. So if you're buying a house, let's say utilizing a bank loan, guess what? You can write off some of that real estate interest and in some states, some taxes. So there's some good things there. Now, for those of you who are professionals and you do the buy and flip thing, when you sell it, normally you would have to pay capital gains tax, right? However much your profit is, you'd have to pay taxes on it. However, if you use what's called a 1035 exchange, guess what? You can reinvest it into another property, a similar type of property. The IRS doesn't really define what that other property is except to say a like kind exchange. So it's not something that's heavily regulated. So if I buy a 3-bedroom or sell a 3-bedroom house and then buy another 3-bedroom house, obviously like kind of exchange, but the IRS is not going to come beat down your door if it's a 4-bedroom, for instance. So that's a nice benefit there. So you can make money on the rent along the way, and then when you turn it over, you decide to go to another property, or maybe the value is gained and you flipped it and you made some money. You can put it back in a new place and charge more rent per month, right? Also, as an investment, the returns have been historically good depending on the area. So they're averaging in most places between 10 and 12%. There are some that do much better, some that do worse, but that's about the average nationally. Now you can make money while you're making money. What do I mean by this? So in other words, you buy a place and you're making money on the rent, and at the same time, your investment is growing in value, which is money. So while you're making money from the rent, you're making money in value as well as time goes by. So those are some pretty good things. Now, strategies for this investment. Now, there are many of them, but we're going to hit on the main ones that most people are familiar with or maybe not familiar with. So the flexibility to use real estate is very important. So for instance, you can use it for short-term rentals. You can use them for long-term rentals. You can use the fix and flip strategy. So you buy something that is run down, you step in with your crew and you get it all fixed up. And then after it's got some, time, and you've got it in good shape, you flip it. You can do the fix and hold strategy. So obviously, if I buy something now and I hold it for 10 years, 15, 20 years, it's going to go up in value, most likely, unless there is a major real estate crash like an '08. And also, there's multi-unit type of investing. So you can buy an apartment complex, duplexes, these kinds of things. What's nice about that is you've got your portfolio technically diversified. So if one renter stops renting, you still have all the other units hopefully rented, right? And that gives you that kind of flexibility there. There's a couple others. There's Section 8. So this is one where you're providing housing through a government program called Section 8. And basically the government is subsidizing rent. So you'll get a portion of it from the government and then the rest from the renter. So there's something there that's kind of a benefit. And lastly, this is the only other one that I'm going to mention, but there are several others, of course, group homes. So there are some people who will purchase a place and establish it as a group home. So it may be people who are transitioning out of jail. It may be people who are fighting an addiction or some other type of thing. So there are these programs where you can actually have agencies pay for people to stay there. So each of these have their challenges. They each have their benefits, but they each also have their downsides. So before we get into the downside part of things, I think maybe what we should kind of focus on is difference between maybe your long-term and your short-term rentals. So maybe I think we'll shift on the short-term rentals. This is a hot button issue here in the state of Florida. Just to give a quick background on how this is looking. So short-term rentals, commonly referred to as vacation rentals, I have to make a clear distinction because there seems to not be one in government. Okay? The clear distinction here is there are individually owned short-term rentals, which is like a person like me who maybe has a second home. Let's say you have a house at the beach and you use it for enjoyment, and then you also rent it to kind of offset the costs. And you do it, typically you rent it in a seasonal situation when the snowbirds come down, as we call them here in Florida. That is not to be confused with corporations, LLCs, and companies who will come into a neighborhood, gobble up as much real estate as they can just for the profit of it, and they don't really care about how it affects the neighborhood. There must be a distinction, because if we don't have this distinction, governments want to regulate the heck out of everybody and lump everybody together. And this is bad because we're starting to see lawsuits like crazy flying about people's rights being violated, their properties being seized by governments and whatnot because of some of these concerns. So that's the lowdown that I kind of wanted to put up front. Now, when we're talking about short-term rentals, I'm going to hand this one off to Sandra. She's kind of a specialist in this area. And so we're going to let her kind of talk on that one.
Okay, so our experience in short-term rentals, if you decide to do a short-term rental, you need to keep in mind a few things: the cost to furnish the property.
Yep.
Keep an eye on the market. Now, there's a difference in income between, of course, high and low season. So from January to March is great because of the, like Dave says, of the snowbirds.
Yep.
But the rest of the year is on and off. So some summer months are good, but in the fall is very, very slow. So keep in mind that there is, rental frequency also depends on certain things, such as if the owner accepts pets, amounts of people allowed in the property, parties allowed. There's so many different things, different regulations that really the actual places where you're putting your property out there, the companies that you're marketing your property in,
Yep.
they don't have a say-so on those things. It's really the owner of the property that does. So just keep in mind when you're renting a property like that to look for those things.
So great point there. So you're basically saying that not all rentals are the same,
Correct.
short term at least. Some people allow pets, so you can travel with your dog, for instance. Some people are like, no way. So the success could depend on some of these small variables.
Correct. Some people charge a deposit.
Yep.
And they're very, strict on that. They likely will keep the deposit, so just keep that in mind.
Yep.
When you are going to be putting your property, your second home property, as an Airbnb, Vrbo, whatever short-term rental you decide to do, keep in mind that you can create your own rules, but like Dave said, depending on that will be your income as well.
Yep.
There's a need to have a budget for all the expenses, not only the utilities, as we had mentioned before, taxes, insurance, internet and mortgage, but also the cost of having a cleaning crew, supplies, the paper towels and things like that that you want to offer the guests. the towels, the blankets, the lawn service, if there's a pool, the pool tech if needed, a property manager in case there's issues with the properties. The renters usually want them to be resolved as soon as possible.
I know you mentioned insurance,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously the insurance rates, especially
Crazy.
here in South Florida,
Yeah.
are nuts.
They are. They are. And that's a great point. Our engineer just brought up here, when we're talking about insurance in this sphere, we're talking about an even higher amount than what a typical first home, your primary residence would be, because you're using it for, first of all, it's a second home. Second of all, it's a rental. So insurance is even higher.
Yes, it's a rental insurance.
Yep.
And then there is also some neighbors don't agree with having short-term rentals. They don't like that in their neighborhoods. So,
There's a challenge.
yeah, the owner, you would have to deal with that. And in many cases, like Dave said, with the city where the property is located, like regulations, parking, if there's a homeowners association, they of course have their own rules
Yep.
on that sort of thing. If there are guests, some guests have an illegal activity at the premises, then the owner can evict them by calling the police.
Yeah, there's some laws that I'm going to be talking about when you're done with this segment, that will kind of focus on the difference between evictions in long-term and evictions in short-term, at least in Florida. So,
Okay, well, for some people, it is better to rent long-term
Yep.
since it is a set monthly payment. There is the option to rent furnished or not furnished, of course, and there are websites that people pay to have that property on their platform and get renters
Yep.
as a long-term as well. So on the long-term rental, the tenant pays the utility bills. The concept about the long-term is the inability to check on the property. There's more wear and tear. One benefit that the owner has on a long-term rental is that he or she can pay a company, like a real estate company, to rent the property, and they do a background check, they collect the payment for them. If the person has not paid the rent, then they can evict the person if needed.
Yeah.
So it would not be on the owner, like on the other short terms, it would actually be on in this case, the actual real estate company would do that for you. And if there are damages to the property, they would hire the contractor to repair them. So there's a lot of benefits to have that for some people if they actually don't live in the state, as an example.
How long is long term?
this is a great question. In this state here, typically it's 6 months or longer. And really, there's been some major court cases that have come back in Florida. One of them, basically, where a city was trying to shake down a homeowner who was privately renting their second home, and they argued before the First District Court of Appeals, hey, we're not a commercial hotel. This is a residence, and we use it as a residential property. And the court agreed with them. So really important distinction, like I said earlier, but there's this patchwork of rulings throughout the state, which is kind of causing a lot of headache and heartache for people who are in the short-term rental sphere. But on top of those issues, she mentioned quite a few other things that you have to think about when you're dealing with short-term and long-term rentals. Obviously, the cost of some of these things. If you think about it, you have mortgage, insurance, then you have internet, assuming you're a short-term or a long-term where you provide the utilities. Internet, the utility bill, you might have an HOA fee, you might have, the pay a pool service, you might have lawn service, and so forth. So really, whether it's short-term or long-term, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself a question: are you making any money? Right? So this is something that by the end of the show, we're going to make some recommendations. Probably not the best time to be in real estate investing. There are good times. This is not really one of them, but there are some ways you can kind of tweak your business model to help. One of the ways, of course, you want to try to bulletproof your property. So you don't want carpet. Preferably you want to have tile, right? That way, if they have pets or they get it dirty and stain, whatever, you don't have to pull out the carpet every so often. If you have tile in your house, it's easy to keep it clean. You always want to keep a few matching tiles just in case one gets broken. That's a little trick of the trade. You want to buy appliances that are simple to operate and have a reputation for longevity. If you have all the bells and whistles on your appliances, let's say a refrigerator that has the ice maker on the outside and the crushed ice and this kind of ice and that kind of ice, and it makes popcorn and whatnot, just kidding. Those things break easier and people are rough on your property. So stick with something that is functional and does the trick. You gotta learn handyman skills. When I got into this game, I knew a few things, but by the time I was done, man, I was a master plumber, a master carpenter, a top-notch electrician. You have to learn some of these handyman skills to save yourself money. Also, if you mow your own grass, do your own pool service, but you have to know what your strengths are and when to hand it off to the professionals, right? We're going to go to break here, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the negative things about this investment and what you should look out for. So give us a call if you'd like to chime in at 772-340-1590.
Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. SunPalmFinancial.com. Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation, and the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, call right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. SunPalmFinancial.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sun Palm Financial broadcast. I'm your host, Dee Thomas. I've got Sandra Liliana with me today. We're talking about real estate investing. And of course, we've hit on some of the benefits. You get to see your property. You know what the value is going to be as you look at the market. And typically, it's done pretty well compared to other investments. And but there's also some downsides. We were looking at the different ideas that you can use it for: fix and flip, fix and hold, multi-unit, Section 8, long-term, short-term rentals, group homes. Now let's talk about the downside of this investment. And it's something that right now a lot of people are feeling that impact. So like any investment, you want to buy low, sell high. But this is often dictated to us when it comes to the real estate market. We don't always get to choose when and where the market will go. So it takes a lot of research to get this right. If you buy at an auction, you might be overpaying, because you don't always get to walk in and look at the property. Let's say you're buying a foreclosure, and then you walk in and you find out the place is just destroyed, right? So there's definitely some concerns there.
So you can't walk in and inspect something you're going to bid on?
That's a great point. It depends. Sometimes they may have that property available to walk into, and you can kind of bid right on site. Other times it might be a website that you're going in blind. It might be a tax sale or something like that, foreclosure, that you're just basically looking at the outside and you understand how many bedrooms and whatnot, but you really don't know the condition. So that's a big risk. It's a roll of the dice there.
Sometimes it's also a bank that owns it that is not here in Florida, and they don't actually have a real estate agency. They're not hiring a real estate agency, so the person actually has to look through the windows and probably send. That happened to us once, and actually send a copy of your driver's license if the bank is willing to do that. If not, it just has to buy, buy sight unseen.
She brings up a great point. I did buy a house this way. We made out like a bandit, but not everyone has. And again, a lot of experience doing it, so it wasn't our first rodeo, and we had a plan in case it was bad, but it turned out to be pretty good. Now, the fix and flip strategy, let's talk about this. You must have a top-notch crew, because the longer it takes to fix the place, the less time you're making money. So if you don't already have a crew that you use regularly, right, to do the fixing part of the flip, you might be getting into real trouble, right? So we've seen people who, I can just like on TV, we can buy it and fix it, and then we'll flip it, and they make the purchase. They don't have a reliable crew, or they try to hire contractors that take their money and run, or they do substandard work or whatever, or you think that you can do the work, and you walk in there, and the next thing you know, oh my gosh, there was termite damage that wiped out half the rafters, then it's spit and glue. Just paint over it and try to sell it. And so now you're upside down, right? So definitely some things comes with experience, right? Now, when you purchase real estate, you have to pay taxes on the front end. You just bought a property and you're paying taxes, right? And there's agent fees now. Also, there might be registration fees for platforms like tracking tax liens and such. So there's a lot of cost on the front end of this sometimes. I mentioned one a second ago, critters. Termites are a major thing in South Florida. We did a purchase of a larger property, and it had some termite damage, so we had to tent this thing. We tented the main house, and there was a shed in the back. Remember this? So the shed in the back, we didn't tent, and I'm going to tell you, thank God we tented the main house, because it did fine. But within maybe a year or two, the termites ate the entire rafters of the shed, big shed, like a good 15 by 20 maybe, and the roof was just disintegrated. So the bugs are no joke. There's another property that we were looking at not long ago with a friend, and we came there late in the afternoon. It was just as the sun was setting. And as we're looking at the property, what came out of there, Sandra? Tell them.
Bats.
Bats. We saw.
What?
Yes. We saw. And I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about hundreds of bats came flooding out of this little hole in the where the roof and the soffit, if those of you who are into construction, the soffit, there was a hole in it. So coming out of the attic at night when the sun went down were hundreds of bats. We've seen the mice and rat infestations too. So not trying to gross anybody out, but again, trying to point out this is not like Property Brothers, okay? Now, the other downsides is the wear and tear from your tenants, right? I'm sorry, but if it's not theirs, people don't care about it. They're rough on your property. They're going to break stuff constantly. They're going to damage stuff constantly. They're going to damage your appliances. And I don't know about you, but the large cost of appliances, the average refrigerator now is somewhere up to the $2,000 range new. $1,500 or so is the starting point just for a new refrigerator. And you can go to Marketplace and buy them there and so on, but it might be a roll of the dice, right? So then there's upkeep and maintenance of the property. You just have to do regular maintenance. Some plumbing stuff is going to be needed from time to time. Some electric stuff is going to be needed. Who's going to mow the grass? Is it going to be the tenant who will mow it once every 3 weeks, once every month when it gets really high, and then the grass dies? Or, there's so many variables here. If, like Sandra mentioned, if there's a pool, who's taking care of the pool? Is it the tenant? Are they a chemist, right? Are they going to do a good job? Or is it going to turn puke green and like guacamole? So this is a real thing you got to think about. Now, in Florida, we have storms and major natural disasters. So we have the hurricanes, we have the tornadoes, other natural disasters that show up like hail sometimes. And my favorite, sinkholes. My friends, I just read about a guy who's over in Tampa who had a beautiful property that just literally got condemned because of sinkhole. These things are real considerations you have to make, right? Now, here's my favorite. If you've survived all the other things, you're making money, hopefully. Well, how about when the tenant just stops paying rent? Then you've got to go into a whole situation with eviction. Now, there's a distinction so far in this state about the eviction process, and I'm going to hit on a couple of those. So, in Florida, a landlord cannot legally evict a tenant without a cause. So, what are the legal grounds to evict? Not paying rent on time, staying after the lease ends, violating the terms of the lease, so have a good lease, people, committing illegal activity, and depending on the grounds for the eviction, the landlord needs to give a proper notice and provide the tenants a chance to cure the violation if it's curable. So, for instance, non-payment of rent, 3-day notice. Is it curable? Yes. End of lease or no lease. They have 15 days to cure that, to vacate, for instance. Is it curable? No, because they're vacating. A lease violation, 7 days notice. It is curable. In other words, you're not allowed to have a dog. Get rid of him in 7 days, for instance. You violated a lease. Substantial property damage and repeat lease violations. Notice period 7 days, not curable, but you have to specify specifically what those issues are that they continued to violate. Now, if it's a short-term rental, there's a law here, Florida 509-141. Where basically if you're classified as a public lodging establishment, which they continue to try to do here in this state, the operator of the public lodging establishment shall notify the guest of the establishment that they no longer desire to entertain the guest and shall request that they depart immediately from the establishment. That notice can be given orally or in writing. I recommend in writing. And some of the things that you can evict for right on the spot: illegally possess some controlled substance as defined by Chapter 893, lewd parties, intoxication, profane, brawling, people who indulge in language or conduct that disturbs the peace in the neighborhood and comfort of other guests. These are the kinds of offenses. So, you hear sometimes these incidents about short-term rentals, and oh my gosh, they magnify them times 100. You might have one weird situation in Timbuktu somewhere, and by God, you will hear it everywhere, all over the media. So there's been this overt effort to really vilify short-term rentals. I would submit to you, it's not a problem in most cases. It's almost a non-existent problem that can easily be cured right here, right? Versus if you have that long-term renter next door, and that guy throws wild parties, and he's loud, he's obnoxious, he's threatening, you're not going to get rid of that guy for a year. And guess what? He can keep renewing his lease, right? So actually, a short-term rental, you still have the ability to call the police if they're loud and whatnot, but usually the owner, if it's privately owned, not one of these corporations that's just buying up blocks of houses for money, but if it's a private owner, they care about the neighborhood, they care about their property because that's their investment. They're going to take care of it 9 times out of 10. So all these stories that we hear, most of them are fallacies or they're exaggerated. And then in the 1 or 2 crazy situations that we hear from time to time, it's a one-off, right? Now, last but not least, when we're talking about the negatives here, the ever-increasing cost of insurance, there's just no relief, especially in Florida. The only relief that our legislature seemed to come up with is for the insurance companies. Oh, let's limit the lawsuits that can be levied against them. Let's limit the AOBs, and let's limit assignment of benefits is what that is. And so, okay, great. Well, what about costing the owner of the house 30% and 40% increases per year? Come on, right? You never see a cap on that, and you never see them forcing the insurance companies to keep more in reserves, right? So, and last but not least, taxes. ever increasing thing on taxes. When it's your second home or it's an investment property, you get no homestead exemption. And I submit to you that cities are foolish on this. States are foolish on this, because the truth is, it's the real estate investor that's beautifying the city. These are the ones that are buying these old dilapidated houses that are run down and rat infested and have squatters and druggies taking over the house. And these people put hundreds of thousands of dollars into these properties. They fix them up, they're beautiful, and then they put decent people into the house. Isn't that what every city should want? And then the taxes increase. So quality of life, taxes, but there's no benefit whatsoever for most real estate investors, at least in the residential sphere. And this is a problem. So if you're listening to me in the city and in the counties and in the states, that's something you should really focus on assisting with. So moving on. Right now, the other thing is I have to tell a story. But before I do, we're going to go to a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to tell a real estate story, a nightmare. So we'll go to a break right now. Dreams. What do your dreams look like? And how far are you willing to chase them before giving up? Or are you willing to stay the course to achieve them? Do you dare believe? Are you willing to work for them, strive hard, to never give up until they are realized? Are your dreams worth chasing? Well, if they are, welcome to Sun Palm Financial, a place where dreams become a reality. Whether your dream is to grow and to thrive towards the good life, or to simply experience freedom through financial security, come share your dreams with us. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
Old money. Why is old money respected more than new? It's not because new money spends their fortunes outrageously and the old money gets jealous. Old money is respected because it has grown over time and is maintained over many, many generations. You see, most new money will be blown eventually or wasted by the second generation. And the descendants of new money just get poorer and poorer after that. But at Sun Palm Financial, we'll help you to create generational wealth that will grow with each new chapter. So if you've been fortunate enough to come into some new money, call right now to schedule your free consultation so that you can join the old club. Sun Palm Financial. Invest, grow, protect. sunpalmfinancial.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sun Palm Financial broadcast, where we talk all things money. I'm here, your host, D. Thomas Cummings. I'm with Sandra Liliana, my co-host. Today we're talking about real estate, and we were looking at the benefits, and then we shifted over to the negatives, and I had a story for you. If you have a story, by the way, give us a call, 772-340-1590. That's 772-340-1590. So we have a client of ours who tried to get into the real estate game, and they bought a house, and they used a professional property manager and real estate service agent to screen a renter, get a good one in there, and they were told that this person hung the moon, and they handed off the property to them, and within 3 months, they decided, okay, well, I'm going to go check on the property. And thank God it was 3 months instead of like 6. Or if you're an out-of-state person, once a year you come down, check on it. We don't recommend that you trust your property manager that much. So she came to the property, knocked on the door opened, 10 dogs came flying out of the property. she peeks, and I'm exaggerating. But it was a bunch of dogs, and there were supposed to be no pets, by the way. She opens the door and says, shocked and surprised. She's like, "Hi, I'm the owner." And the person's like, "Oh, come in." Well, she couldn't come in because the door wouldn't open. There was so much stuff in there that the door could barely open, so she has to like literally force and slide the door open. These people were hoarders. And there was so much stuff in that place, they couldn't even get through the house to look around. And I'm not going to describe what things were there, but it was so many things, including the dogs. They didn't go to the yard. We'll just leave it at that. And so forth. Disgusting. The property was just decimated. In 3 months, we've heard other folks, including a story the other day, where they had 10 cats to 20 cats in the property, and the landlord goes in, smells this funky smell, or maybe it was on one of these shows. I think it was on Hoarders or one of these, and there's like a dead cat, and then another dead cat, and then another another dead cat. We've never had anything to this degree. But we have had some serious issues. We had a person, for instance, who was long-term rental, was screened through the agency or whatever, and background check and so forth, which I think that wasn't done. Anyway, the person moves in, never pays rent once, and had to be evicted. It took about a 3 to 4 month long process to evict them. And then we find out this person is literally a registered organized crime figure. Yeah. So how about
He was wearing the jacket.
Yeah. So imagine you've got to evict Al Capone, right? So this is the kind of stuff that's going on, and so you hear these things about, oh well, hey, it's passive income. No, it's not. There's work
That's
involved.
okay, sir. You can stay here.
You can stay here indefinitely. So there are definitely some crazy things that you can encounter out there. So if you don't want to be in the landlord business, if you don't want to put in work, let me just tell you, now's the time to sell. The values have gone up. Now, the best time to sell was after 2020. Okay, let me just make that clear, when the values just went crazy. But now is still a good time to sell, at least in Florida, because we have people that are selling their places up north in cash, or even making a profit. Maybe they're just paying off their mortgage. The amount of money that they're coming down with it to buy these houses in cash is really good. Don't miss that opportunity, because it may go away in the next year or two as the economy slumps and values. If we have another real estate crash, which is being talked about, you might be left without a chair when the music stops. So is it time to sell? I think so. Also, what are some things, Sandra, that maybe people can do to make their house more attractive, because there's some competition out there? Let's just say if somebody wants to take out a loan and do an addition, is that a smart idea? What do you think?
Well, it all depends. If somebody's thinking of that, I would actually do the research of how the properties are selling with or without the addition.
Yep.
I find that it's important, where is the money coming from to build the addition? You
Yeah.
know, that as well. What is the time frame to sell the house after the addition has been completed? If they are getting a home equity line of credit, depending on the amount of years they're going to stay at the property before they sell it, maybe the market can change. They can end up being upside down, meaning they owe more than the than the value of the property. Also, if they do a home line and equity line of credit, they also have to find out, is there a prepayment penalty? Are they able to pay it sooner than what is expected, or sooner than what that loan term is? That could also be important for that.
Good point.
The home equity can also affect the sale of the house, since it has to be paid before the completion of the sale.
Right.
The property can't have any liens. So at closing, all liens will be paid. A lot of people don't know if they actually get one of those home equity line of credits. We call them HELOCs in the mortgage industry. They have to make sure and know that the property value has to be high, because at the closing, they actually have to sell they have to pay the first mortgage, right, from the closing cost. From the actual amount that the buyer's bringing, the seller will actually have to pay for their mortgage. Then they have to pay for the second lien, in this case would be the HELOC, and they have to pay for any other fees that were acquired, while they were owning the property. As an example, there are people that have a condo, of course, let's say right now as an example, if they have a condo and they do a roof replacement or anything like that, the homeowner association does anything like that, if the owner has not paid that off before they sell the property, that will actually come out of the closing cost.
So you're talking about the assessments that we see.
Any assessments that we see, the actual title company will have to pay all those before any profits from the sale come to the actual seller. So that's something to keep up, to keep in mind.
Yeah.
If the actual value of the property is not that high and it's not going to make that much of a difference, but the actual amount of the loan is very high, well, the seller will have to keep that in mind, that they're going to have to pay that at closing, and that's coming from their profit.
Good point. So basically what we're saying is if they're going to do an addition, it has to make sense to offset, in other words, if there's 3 houses on the block, they're all a 3-bedroom and they're all for sale. Yours has granite countertops. Obviously, it'll be more likely to sell faster, but does that mean it will sell for more? It may not be.
Not only that, they have to keep in mind, okay, do they know the contractor? Because some contractors will give you an actual time frame of, the completion of any addition or any building project, and they might actually not end up finishing it, with that time frame. So then maybe the market can actually change
In that time
and then
frame,
exactly, and then the value would actually not increase that much at all. And like you had mentioned before, they're losing money as well while the repairs are going.
Yeah.
We had friends who had a kitchen redone,
Yep.
and this was in the COVID time. But remember when we had the trouble getting like auto parts and
Oh, yeah.
all the other stuff? It took 9 months to do a kitchen,
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it wasn't that big.
Yeah.
It just wasn't that big.
We had one, we did a rehab on a house, new kitchen, new tile floors in the bedrooms, and new bathrooms.
Bathrooms, yeah.
So 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and then retiling part of it. How long did that one take?
And I think that one was like 2 months. But either way, we were actually, because of that, we were not able, of course, to rent it.
Yep.
That is the home that we have as a short-term rental. So we had to block that time. And we actually were very close to the moment that we had, remember that we
renter
blocked it and we had a
booked.
renter that had booked, yes.
Yeah, that's true. So definitely some things to think about. So now, of course, there's a lawsuit that has been settled with the National Association of Realtors. The question is, we won't really I don't know if we're gonna see how this plays out immediately, but it's definitely gonna have some sort of effect. Where it used to be the seller had to pay all the fees and whatnot to sell their house, and they thought this was unfair, and there was a lawsuit, and now the settlement, basically, it has to be written into the contract, who's gonna pay these things. And so I don't know how much it's going to change the way the real estate business is done, but there's a general consensus that the ones who will be affected the most are going to probably be buyers, because now if I'm selling a property, I'm in the advantage. There's a million people that will knock on my door versus, if I'm the buyer, it's hard to find the right house and whatever. So I'm going to naturally say you have to pay the listing costs associated with real estate fees. I would do that most likely. So now the buyer has that additional cost to come up with. And let's just say listing fees are 6%. 6% of a house that's, the average home now, $450,000, that's a pretty penny to put down on top of the down payment, on top of your prepaids, taxes
cost.
and insurance, closing costs. So buyers are definitely going to be affected by this, I think. We'll have to see how it's going to play out. I don't want to, this settlement just came to fruition, so we don't know the full effect just yet. But when we're talking about real estate, there are times the buy low, sell high. If you have a crash, that's the time to buy. If the homes are in the market just bottoms out, that's when we got into this, right? So we got into it after the 2008 crash. We were doing the real estate purchases when they were near the bottom of the market. because there was only one place for them to go, and that was up. Now, people said, oh, well, that was a bubble and those values were inflated to begin with. There's truth to that. There was probably about a 7 to 10 year correction on the values. So by the time the values got back up where they were during the bubble, then they were real numbers. That was real values. So we had to contemplate that when we were in the process of deciding where to purchase, how to purchase, and so forth. The other thing that I talked about is right now we have, and I cannot stress this enough, we have corporations, we have hedge funds, we have large organizations that are going into neighborhoods and buying up entire blocks of properties. And we're not talking about your common people who are real estate investors. We're talking about companies that are doing this, and then they control the market to inflate the rent to astronomical amounts. Or they're putting whole blocks of neighborhoods as short-term rentals without a care for who they put in there. Those should be regulated. I can't stress that enough. The cities and the counties and the states need to be regulating this because it's causing people to not have a place to live, number one. Secondly, it's making regular short-term rental people that are privately owned, mom and pop type of deal, they're not really making anything from this because, you know, after taxes, insurance, mortgage, and whatever, they're probably breaking even. It's really just people are doing it to cover the cost of a second home, maybe at the beach, or maybe they're just trying to do it as a retirement strategy so that someone else is paying the mortgage for the next 30 years. So when they get to retirement age, they now have a paid for house to sell or pass on to their kids. But the corporations are just killing the industry. So definitely need to be regulated. So the question is it time to sell if you're in the real estate game? I would say so. If you'd like to talk to us more about where you can put your money when you want to sell, or if you're retiring and downsizing, give us a call at 561-783-3334. That's our Sun Palm Financial office, or go to sunpalmfinancial.com. Schedule a consultation, doesn't cost you a dime. We'll sit down with you and we'll talk it out. We actually also work with real estate agents and others to help you get your house sold. And so really, right now, if you've got a property that's, you're tired of being the landlord game, or you're ready to downsize and retire, or you've seen so much competition in the short-term rental sphere, you're just not making the money that you need to, give us a call. We'll invest the money in something fantastic. And guess what? We'll get you taken care of. We'll get you set up, good returns, safe, and you will actually have passive income. 561-783-3334. That's our office number, sunpalmfinancial.com. All right, so as we're kind of wrapping up here, talking about the residential real estate investing, I hope that we've been able to kind of give you a realistic expectation of what's out there. Right now, not a big fortune to be made. It's probably a good time to sell, put the money into an investment, at least for 10 years, 7 years, until there's another opportunity that comes up to buy. So, thanks for chiming in with us today, and we'll talk to you the next time.
So again, how can folks find you?
They can reach out to us, www.sunpalmfinancial.com.
And that phone number again?
Just call us at just go to the website, get on our calendar. How about that?
There you go. All right. Have a good week.